In today's video, I'm checking out what may be the best bike lane in North America to see if it lives up to its billing and to see if there's something we can all learn from the way it's being built. Hey, I'm Tom and this is Shifter, a channel about urban cycling and bike commuting. And the bike lane I'm talking about is part of the arterial bike network in Montreal that's called the REV. And the city promises 4 distinct characteristics for all of the bike lanes that make up this network. Today we're going to test all 4 of them and see what we can learn to apply to other places, including maybe your city. Let's get started. The first characteristic of bike lanes that are a part of the REV network is that they are separated from car traffic and accessible all year long to cyclists of all skill levels. So let's see. Okay, clearly you can see here there is good separation from car traffic. So why does this matter? Well, you may be a confident cyclist and feel fine riding beside cars. The research says the vast majority of people on bikes just don't feel comfortable doing it. It's too stressful. Well, there's a well-known study from San Jose, California back in the 2010s that found that of short bike trips available in that city, only 4.7% were at the stress level that most adults would tolerate. However, if the city was to undertake a targeted construction plan of just 32 miles of additional bike lanes, they could triple that number of low-stress routes. I think that goes to show that while cities and maybe politicians sometimes like to brag about the total number of bike lanes available, what's probably more important is the number of stress-free, well-built, safe bike lanes that people will actually use. Characteristic number 2, high-capacity lanes that are wide enough for cyclists to pass one another. This is a popular section of the REV, and check it out. I'd say it absolutely meets this standard. Look, there's even room for this guy to pass me while I'm blabbing at the camera. But this is away from the most dense parts of the city, so it's probably easier to find space here. What about downtown? I mean, check this out. This is pretty much downtown, and look how wide this is. Now, this is just a question of space. There's no magic formula here. They just took some space and turned it into a good quality bike lane. Like, look at that. That's great. And I think this plays into something else that's important about the REV. Let's call it the branding. So the name, the REV, is an acronym in French. It's Réseau Express Vélo. There is an English translation of that, the EBN, the Express Bike Network, but nobody calls it that. Everybody calls it the REV. Now, for one thing, this aligns really well with other transit options in the city. The new light rail line that just opened here in Montreal is called the REM, so there's some consistency there. And consistency, of course, is one of the tenets of good branding. I also like that the REV has its own unique color and logo. It's blue, and every time you're riding a REV network bike lane, it's got blue paint and blue bollards, and that consistency also helps over time as well. And it may seem like a small thing, but I think that does influence the way people think about them. And good branding is all about feelings and emotions. And if you're riding a blue bike lane, and maybe you don't even understand the network itself, but if you start to recognize that blue lanes are wide and they're safe and they're easy, that does give you a certain feeling, a feeling of safety and comfort and trust, and that will influence the way you think and talk about it over time and how you use it. And I've seen this in the way Montrealers talk about the REV. I mean, maybe it's for a visitor, especially they say, oh, just get on the REV, that'll take you right there. In the same way that they talk about transit. I mean, transit lines are like this. It's like, oh, get on the blue line, it will take you where you need to go. That stuff does help over time. It helps you navigate the system, and it does build up a way people think and talk about it. So Montreal is not the only city in the world that has an arterial bike lane network, but the way it's presented and discussed varies quite a bit, and I think that's a pretty important piece that's sometimes overlooked. London is a good example here as well. Now, a number of years ago when they started building out their bike lane network, they constructed a network of what they called cycling superhighways. These were wide routes that stretched out into the suburbs and brought people into the downtown core. Now, I've got a whole video talking about this, but this is worth mentioning again. And then the way we talk about these kinds of lanes does have a pretty big and important way in influencing the way we think about them as well. Now, London actually stopped using the word highway when they talk about these routes, and that was because the word highway, I think, implies speed. And what was happening in London is lots of speedy cyclists would see these wide routes and hear the word highway, and they would go for it. They would look them as almost like, racing routes. They would try to ride fast on them. And then the difference in, a slow commuter or a mom on a bike with her kids in a cargo bike and these fast-moving bikes was causing a problem. These generally are urban routes. They're not intended for sports or racing or athletics. They're intended for transportation. And the different speeds of people on those can really be problematic. So one of the measures they've taken to try to address that is change the way they talk about them. They no longer say they are highways. And I think that's why here in Montreal, they've chosen not to use the word highway. Instead, they're using the word express. I think it has a different meaning, and it probably does change the way people think about it, that these are routes built for efficiency and transportation, used by everybody, kids, older people, parents, everybody. And yes, maybe athletic cyclists as well, as long as they're going at the right speed. It's different than what you think about when you hear the word highway.
The third promise of the REV is this: paths that are designed to create the most direct routes for long distance trips. And let's get out there and test this one. One arm of the REV is planned to cross almost the entire island, but the final piece isn't just quite complete yet. Now, I've ridden most of it from the north and it's been great, direct and long, just as promised. But let's see what happens when I hit the area that hasn't quite been finished yet.
Okay, according to the map up here, the REV kind of doesn't end, but it has to hop over a few blocks to carry on, which is not great. I just want to see, if this promise holds up through this transition. Oh yeah, so here's the end. This must be where I head over a couple of blocks. So there's a little bike box here, so that's nice. There we go. Okay, hopping over, I think it's just 1 or 2 blocks. Oh, I know this spot, yes. This is one of the original bike lanes in Montreal, so I guess it scoots me over here and then down on this underpass. There it is over there. Now there's construction. Okay, so I can't think we could see that. It's not perfect right here, but that was a pretty long stretch. It's a little bit compromised right here. Hopefully it's temporary mostly, otherwise it is what it is.
So that was actually a pretty good long stretch, but it will be great to see it properly completed someday. But this also raises another important point about the REV and its directness.
Okay, I want to stop here for a minute because I want to talk about maps, specifically cycling maps. This is one of the maps. This is the map of the REV, or its plan for build out over a number of years. Now, you don't have to get into the details, but what does this map look like? To me, it looks like a transit map. These look like lines transportation routes. These lines are corridors in which you can get somewhere. Now, I want to show you another map. This is from the city of Calgary, where I live. This is its cycling build-out map over the next few years. And what does this look like? Does this look like a transit map? Does this look like a transportation map? No, to me, this looks more like a plate of spaghetti. Now, the point here is not to pick on the city of Calgary, where I live. It's just to show that there are two different ways of approaching cycling. Calgary's long-term cycling plan is motivated by something they call the 5A network. Always, what are the 5As? It's 5As. Always available for all ages and abilities. So they really are motivated by ensuring people have access to a bike route nearby, which is a laudable goal. Now, with that in mind, take a look at the map again. Yeah, there are a lot of bike routes identified here, and they will be within proximity to a lot of people, which is great. But what if you're trying to get somewhere? I mean, what if a bus or a train network was planned this way? You wouldn't be able to get anywhere. So yes, having routes near everybody is an important goal and something that we should strive for. But if you really take a look at these two maps side by side, you really can see sort of a fundamental difference in the way they're being approached. Yes, there are differences in the makeup of each city, but it's hard not to look at the Montreal map and think it's built for transportation, and the Calgary map and think maybe a lot of it is motivated by recreation. Having a nice bike route nearby so people can go for a bike ride. Now, given that, if you wanted to choose a bike as a transportation option, which map would you prefer?
The last promise of the REV is connections to existing bike lanes. And so I went out searching for those connections.
You can see that all along this route is that other bike lanes come up to it and come off of it. And I think that's really important. I mean, that's the whole point of an arterial network, right? Is you have a spine and then all of the bones can be built off of that. Now, Montreal had built a ton of bike lanes before the REV was even a concept. And so what they've had to do is sort of retrofit some of those into REV's quality bike lanes and then build out of there. Can you imagine a city that did it the other way, where they identified early on an arterial network, built a good quality network that would get people around, and then over time afterwards, they could build off of that with, bike lanes into neighborhoods and that kind of thing? Now that would be amazing. Okay, I'm off the REV now, and I wanted to come here because I wanted to visit one of the red parts of the map, one of the red lines that has not been built yet, and that's what this is. And there's a few reasons I wanted to do that. One is to talk about the network effect of an arterial network. Transportation network is greater than the sum of its parts. Without the full build out of that network, you lack the total benefits that a interconnected network gives you. And I'm here because this is where a key connection to the REV network was planned, but may not happen. Montreal has a new mayor, and I would say it's fair to say her enthusiasm for cycling was not as strong as the previous administration's. And one of the first things she did in office was to order a review of the REV network. Now, she says she's doing this to ensure that all of the bike lanes are being built properly and they're performing well. And if that's the case, that's fine. I think we need to be reviewing bike lanes. Cities build bad bike lanes all the time, and reviewing them and increasing the efficiency of a network is a great thing. But the word review can also be politician speak for this is something that some of my constituents don't like and some of them do like, and I'm afraid of making a decision, and therefore I'm just gonna put it into limbo for a little while. And so the bike lanes that I've been on today have been mostly fantastic. Yeah, there are a few holes here and there, and not every moment on that bike lane was great, but overall, they're fantastic. But the weaknesses of that network are in the connections and the completeness. And if we stop now, if you don't finish the arterial network, you're really missing an opportunity to bring that cycling, not just to other areas of the city, but to enjoy the full benefits of an interconnected network. It makes a huge difference. If you can't cross a highway safely like this on a bike to get to work, then chances are you're not gonna ride your bike to get to work. And even more importantly maybe is if you can't cross that to get groceries or to take your kids to daycare, you are not going to be able to choose the bike as a transportation option in your life. So I'd say without a full network build out, we're absolutely missing an opportunity. So does the REV live up to its promise? Yeah, in a lot of places it did. Not completely because it's not full build out. And I think that's the real lesson here is an arterial network can be so strong, can do so much for you. So that we really should focus on building these out first.
And there's evidence that a good arterial network like the REV, it really works. When the REV section on Saint Denis here in Montreal opened, it was setting ridership records. And so they looked at these numbers. And what they found was of all the people riding on that section, only 7% were cyclists who previously rode on parallel routes. The rest was new traffic. So is this the best bike lane in North America? Well, it's definitely high on the list, but I'd say the REV represents something even more important than that. It's the start of what is the best bike arterial network in North America, even if there is a lot of work remaining for it to become a true network.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Today, this is Shifter, a channel about urban cycling and bike commuting. Please consider subscribing and becoming a member by checking out my digital course on how to bike commute. There are new sections on e-bikes and cargo bikes and a new lower price starter pack. See you next time.